The morning my father-in-law's will was read, my sister-in-law brought her own lawyer to the meeting. She sat down across from me, smiled, and said, "You're not blood. You get nothing, and everyone here knows it." Her husband nodded along like it was already settled. I didn't argue. I didn't even flinch. I simply reached into my bag, placed a small sealed envelope on the table, and asked the estate attorney to open it when the reading reached my name. 4 minutes later, he stopped mid-sentence, looked up at the room, and said 6 words that changed everything. "This changes the entire distribution. My name is Elena Reyes. I'm 41 years old." And the woman glaring at me across that table was Camille, my husband's older sister. She'd spent 15 years reminding me, in every possible way, that I married into this family. I never married into their bakery empire. I built it. To understand why that room went silent, you have to go back to when I was 26. I met Daniel at a farmer's market. He was selling his father's sourdough out of a folding table, barely making rent. His father, Marcus, owned one small bakery in a strip mall that was 2 bad months from closing. Everyone in the family, including Camille, thought the business was already dead weight. I didn't. I saw a recipe worth saving, and a family that had simply stopped believing in it. Daniel and I married 2 years later. Marcus, my father-in-law, treated me like a daughter from day one, more warmth than his own children gave him, honestly. When the bakery nearly went under in our 3rd year of marriage, I did something nobody in that family expected. I took my entire savings, $18,000 I'd been saving for a home down payment, and I quietly wired it into the business account to cover a supplier debt before it went to collections. I never told Camille. I never told anyone but Marcus. "You'll get this back," he told me, sitting across his cluttered kitchen table at 11 at night. "One day this bakery is going to be worth something, and you're going to own a piece of it. I promise you that." I laughed it off at the time. I wasn't doing it for ownership. I was doing it because I loved this stubborn old man and his terrible, wonderful bread. Over the next decade, I did more than bake. I built the systems nobody else wanted to build. I created the wholesale accounts that got Marcus's sourdough into 11 grocery chains. I negotiated the lease on the 2nd location when Camille told her father it was too risky and refused to help. I sat beside Marcus at 2 a.m., going over spreadsheets while Daniel, my own husband, grew more distant every year, more interested in golf trips than flower orders. Marcus noticed things Daniel stopped noticing. "You're the only one who still shows up," he told me once near the end. "Camille shows up for the money. Daniel shows up when it's convenient. You show up because you actually care." He started sending me emails. Small ones. "Thank you for saving us again. I don't know where this business would be without you. One day I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what you did for this family." I kept every one of those emails. I didn't know yet how much they would matter. Marcus passed away 18 months ago. Congestive heart failure, quick at the end, though the years leading up to it were slow and hard. In his final year, Camille suddenly reappeared, suddenly interested. Suddenly at every family dinner, suddenly asking her father detailed questions about the future of the business, while I sat quietly, doing the actual work, the way I always had. After the funeral, things shifted fast. Camille started talking to relatives about keeping the business in the family bloodline. She stopped inviting me to conversations about the bakery's future. When I asked Daniel what was going on, he shrugged the way his father used to shrug off Camille's complaints. "It's just family stuff, Elena. Don't read into it." I should have read into it sooner. 3 weeks before the will reading, I overheard Camille on the phone in the parking lot outside the original bakery. Once the estate clears, she has no legal claim to any of it. She's not blood, and Dad never put anything in writing that says otherwise. She'll get whatever Daniel decides to give her, which won't be much. My chest went cold, not because I wanted the business for myself, because I finally understood. They were planning to erase 15 years of my life from the record, quietly, before I even had the chance to object. That night I didn't cry. I sat at my kitchen table until 2 a.m, going through boxes I'd kept for over a decade. Every wire transfer receipt, every email from Marcus. And then, at the very bottom of an old file box, something I'd genuinely forgotten existed. A handwritten letter from Marcus, dated 4 years earlier. Notarized, sealed, addressed to whoever handles my estate. I hadn't opened it. He'd asked me not to until it mattered. I called an estate attorney the next morning. Her name was Patricia Nguyen. I laid out everything. The wire transfers, the emails, the notarized letter still sealed in its original envelope. She read through it all in silence, then looked up at me. "Elena, do you understand what you might actually be holding?" "I think I might," I said quietly. "I never wanted to assume." "Don't open this letter until the reading," she told me. "Let it land exactly the way he intended it to." The day of the reading, Camille arrived with her own attorney, a tall man in an expensive suit who clearly expected a formality, not a fight. Daniel sat beside his sister instead of beside me, which told me everything I needed to know about where his loyalty had quietly drifted. Camille leaned toward me before the meeting started. "You're not blood. You get nothing, and everyone here knows it." I said nothing. I simply placed the sealed envelope on the table in front of the estate attorney and asked him to open it. When the reading reached the section concerning ownership, the reading began. Standard language, property transfers, a few small personal items, until the attorney reached the paragraph naming ownership of the bakery corporation. Camille's attorney immediately stated his position. My client, as sole surviving biological child, should retain controlling interest in the business. Mrs. Reyes, while a family member by marriage, has no documented ownership claim. The estate attorney nodded slowly. That would typically be accurate, unless other binding documentation exists. He looked toward me. "Mrs. Reyes, I understand you have something for the record?" "I do," I said, and pushed the sealed envelope forward. He opened it carefully. The room watched in complete silence as he unfolded 4 handwritten pages. His eyes moved down the first page, stopped, then went back up and read it again. "Mrs. Reyes," he said, "did you know the contents of this letter?" "No," I said honestly. "I was asked never to open it." He continued reading aloud. Marcus's handwriting, plain and direct, the same voice I remembered from those late nights over spreadsheets. I, Marcus Whitfield, being of sound mind, when it recorded that Elena Reyes has contributed more to the survival and growth of this business than any biological member of my family, including my own children. In 2011, she personally covered an $18,000 supplier debt that would have forced this bakery into closure. She built our wholesale distribution from nothing. She negotiated our second lease when my own daughter refused to help. It is my wish, binding upon my estate, that Elena Reyes retain a 25% ownership stake in Whitfield Bakery Holdings, separate and independent of her marriage to my son, effective upon my death. Camille's attorney stood immediately. "Your Honor, counsel, this document wasn't part of the original will filing." The estate attorney remained calm. "It's a notarized codicil properly witnessed and dated. It's entirely valid, and it takes precedence over any assumptions made prior to this reading." Camille's face had gone pale. Daniel stared at the table, unable to look at either of us. "There's more," the attorney said, and continued to the final paragraph. "To my daughter Camille, I love you, but love and effort are not the same thing. I hope one day you understand the difference the way Elena always has." Nobody spoke. The only sound in that room was paper settling back onto the table. The estate attorney closed the folder. "Given this documentation, distribution of business assets will need to be recalculated according to the terms specified. I'll need supporting financial records to confirm the wire transfer referenced." "I have them," I said quietly. Bank statements dated, going back 13 years. For the first time since I'd walked into that room, Camille said nothing at all. The formal recalculation took another 6 weeks. Every record I'd kept, every wire transfer, every email, was independently verified. In the end, the estate attorney confirmed exactly what Marcus had written. 25% ownership, mine, permanently, regardless of what happened in my marriage. Something else happened during those 6 weeks that mattered more than the ownership stake. Daniel and I sat down, finally, honestly, for the first time in years. "I let my sister convince me you didn't deserve any of this," he admitted. "It was easier than admitting how much I'd checked out while you carried everything. I didn't do any of it for a percentage," I told him. "I did it because I loved your father, and for a long time, I loved the version of you that used to show up too." He didn't have a response to that. We separated 4 months later, quietly, without the bitterness Camille had clearly hoped for. Today I still run the wholesale side of Whitfield Bakery Holdings. Camille and I are polite in board meetings. Nothing more, nothing less. I never wanted her approval. I never even wanted the 25% if I'm honest. What I wanted was simple. I wanted the truth written down somewhere it couldn't be erased. Marcus gave me that before he even knew I'd need it. People sometimes ask if I feel like I won something that day in the reading room. I didn't win anything. I simply stopped letting other people decide what my years of quiet effort were worth. My value was never in that envelope. It was never in the will, or the wire transfers, or the 25%. It was there all along, in every 2 a.m. spreadsheet, every debt I quietly covered. Every year I showed up when showing up was the only thing anyone asked of me. The letter didn't create my worth. It only finally said it out loud.